Frank, did you get anything new or you still have the Camaro?
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. City Council of Port Colborne on September the 27th, 2021. At this time, I'll call on our Deputy Clerk for the National Anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Quand on passe porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Dans l'histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep my land glorious and free. Protège nos foyers, c'est nos toits. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Great, thank you to the McKay Choir once again. At this time, we have three proclamations this evening. I'll have Councillors Desmarais and Bruno move items 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. Islamic History Month, October 1st to 31st, 2021. Meals on Wheels Awareness Week, October 3rd to 9th, 2021. And Small Business Week, October 17th to 23rd, 2021. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Adoption of the agenda. All of Councillors Wells and Bodner move the agenda. Are there any questions with regards to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest that haven't already been declared? Seeing none, we do not have any this evening. Approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. Council. I'll have Councillors Kalaleff and Beauregard move regular meeting of Council September 13th, 2021. Committee of the Whole Budget Meeting September 16th, 2021. Questions? All in favor, please raise a hand. That's carried. We have items pulled this evening, items 8.1, 8.2, 8.6, and 8.10. Anything further, councillors? Seeing none, to vote on the remainder that haven't been pulled. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. We do not have any presentations this evening. Delegations. We have one delegation, which has changed. It's the same delegation, just a different person. Do we have a? Kelly Rankin is here? Okay. So it's Greg Passan of Canal Side is unavailable. He has Kelly Rankin joining us this evening for the delegation, which is in your agenda. And do you have, there's Kelly. Okay, Kelly, you're here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Great, thank you.
Sorry, I'm just trying to finish getting set up here.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're good.
Yep, we can see you. Go ahead.
Oh, am I up already?
You're up already.
Okay, so we are here to ask the committee to extend our patio for year round.
Okay. Anything else to add or?
Well, we have spent a considerable amount of money. We've spent about $25,000 having awnings installed and patio heaters so that it would be able to be used year-round. We will be responsible, obviously, as we have been in the past, for snow removal. The patio is brought in every evening and put back out every morning, so there's never anything left outside, any obstructions or anything like that. We've done it for multiple reasons, obviously to extend our seating. Also, if there are people who are not perhaps comfortable sitting inside, they would now have that as another choice. So we're just merely asking permission to have our patio able to be used on a year-round basis now, if possible.
Okay. I'll take questions from counselors.
Okay?
Counselor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. I actually would like to refer this to staff for a more fulsome report. I've had a couple of locals call me and they're not in favor of this. I truly, at the face of it, couldn't see a big problem, but I would like to hear what staff has to say about it,
Sure.
what possible implications there would be.
Okay, so I have a motion to refer. Can I get a seconder to that? Counselor Beauregard. There is no debate on referral. Do you want that to come back at our next meeting, Counselor?
Yes, please, as soon as possible.
2 meetings? Oh, sorry, I'm just looking at the clerk. The clerk says 2 meetings? Okay.
That's fine.
Is that fine in 2 meetings? Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got time for the referral, and we have the reason for the referral. Again, no debate. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. So Kelly, what's happening now is it's going to be referred to staff for a report back to council. So it'll go through
Okay.
our planning and bylaws division, and then that report will come back at our second meeting in October. And
Okay.
then council will make their decision at that time. All right?
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate you coming out tonight.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great. This time we'll go on to the mayor's report. First off, I'd like to congratulate all candidates that ran in the recent federal election. And specifically, I'd like to congratulate MP Vance Badaway for being re-elected. And we look forward, both staff and council at City Hall, to continue our work with MP Badaway with a number of projects that are going on, not just in Port Colborne, but in the riding itself, which entails Welland, Thorold, and South St. Catharines, and to move some projects forward that do have a direct benefit to our municipality. So again, we congratulate Vance on that victory, and again, we look forward to working diligently with him on a number of fronts. Ontario continues to pause its exit from the roadmap to reopening. Ensuring you get vaccinated is more important than ever with the new Delta variant of COVID-19. We ask you to visit ontario.ca for vaccination locations. Also, you must now show proof of vaccination to enter certain businesses and recreation facilities. Please ensure you carry this with you. If you need assistance in getting a printed copy of your vaccination record, stop by the Port Colborne Public Library and our staff would be more than happy to assist you. Please watch our social media pages for complete updates as we receive them from the province. And at this time, it will still be important for you to wear a mask and maintain social distancing. Staff are continuing to offer customer service support for residents, business, and visitors by phone, email, website, and social media channels. If you have questions in regards to City Hall services or would like to report a concern, you can contact a customer service representative Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. by calling 905-835-2900 or via email customerservice@portcolborne.ca. Alternatively, you can visit our website, www.portcolborne.ca, and submit a service request or inquiry by clicking on the Request a Service tab located in the top right corner of our website page. The Royal Canadian Legion is now accepting entries for the Youth Remembrance Day poster contest. In partnership with schools across the country and with the Legion National Foundation, they promote remembrance and support youth education through the annual poster and literary contests. Students in grades 1 through 12 are invited to submit their creative works with a focus on remembrance. through their local school to be entered into Legion branch contests. Winning entries move forward to the Legion's provincial level. Finalists are then forwarded to the Legion National Foundation in Ottawa to be judged at the national level. Last year, and you'll see this up on your screen, Ryan Mullins, a student at Lakeshore Catholic High School, entered the poster you see in the intermediate grades 7, 8, 9 black and white category. He subsequently won at the branch 56 level, the zone, district and provincial levels, and won third place on the national level. What an achievement for the student from Lakeshore Catholic High School right here in Port Colborne. I encourage you to start thinking about an essay or poem to write or a picture to draw that inspires remembrance. For more information, please contact Helene Trottier-Tate, Youth Education Chair at Royal Canadian Legion Branch 56 on Clarence Street. I would also like to invite the children of our community to help us with the design of our 2021 Christmas card. Christmas is a time for families and friends. It brings many wonderful memories, and I find it most appropriate that our children be a part of creating those memories, which can be passed on to future generations. The theme is Christmas in Port Colborne. Submissions should be made on a white sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, either vertical or horizontal, using any number of colors. Deep, dark colors produce a better illustration. I encourage you to draw an image that conveys the Christmas spirit with special focus on a Port Colborne person, place, or thing. The contest is open to all children who live or go to school in Port Colborne, up to and including those in grade 8. I would appreciate all submissions be received at my office at 66 Charlotte Street by Friday, October 15th at 4 p.m. If you're dropping off your picture, please knock on the front door or drop it in the mail slot on the front east side of the building. Please print your name, address, and telephone number on the back of the picture. Last week, myself, Gary Long, Manager of Strategic Projects, and Greg Higginbotham, Tourism Coordinator, met with staff from the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation. Vice President Jean-Aubry Morin and Nicholas Poirier-Couisnel, Manager of Government Relations, to discuss future opportunities for partnerships between the city and the Seaway. These included land development, maintenance of properties, the cruise initiative, and infrastructure at Dock 18. The Seaway is a great asset to our city and businesses, and we will continue to forge relationships to benefit all. Niagara Region and all 12 local area municipalities are considering moving to a single consolidated public transit system, a decision that could be made as early as this fall. The proposed model, based on consultation with all municipalities, would bring consistent operating hours and fares, new digital payment technology, and better connections for riders across Niagara. It would contribute to the social and economic prosperity of Niagara in many ways, by creating better access to jobs and services in Niagara, opening up new job options for residents in neighboring municipalities, and new markets for business. Protecting our natural environment by providing residents with more sustainable, environmentally friendly public transit options, reducing traffic congestion and greenhouse gas emissions. Preparing Niagara for the future by making sure our transit options can scale up to meet the needs of our growing population and job market. Supporting the expansion and connectivity of GO Transit service to the region. I urge you to visit the webpage www.movingtransitforward.ca to read more about it and complete the online survey. So again, that's www.movingtransitforward.ca, and please complete that survey that's online. Repairs underway on the multi-use trail between Welland and Port Colborne, known as the Dane City Trail. With the bad weather we had last week, things got a little delayed, and we expect the trail to open by October the 9th in time for the Thanksgiving weekend. This year, Fire Prevention Week is October 3rd to 9th and focuses on learn the sounds of fire safety. Knowing what to do when an alarm sounds will keep you and your family safe. When an alarm makes noises, a beeping sound or a chirping sound, you must take action. Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services is also inviting the community to participate in a fun, interactive bingo game. Starting this Thursday, residents can find fire safety bingo cards online on the city's Facebook page and in the October edition of City Hall News. The bingo card will ask safety questions to make sure residents are prepared for an emergency. For example, have you checked your smoke alarm recently? Do you know when your smoke alarm expires? Once the resident has successfully completed an entire line on the bingo card, they can snap a picture and send it to the City of Port Colborne via a Facebook private message or by emailing communicationsofficer@portcolborne.ca. Fire and Emergency Services will be hosting a free mask giveaway on Wednesday, October the 5th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the fire station located at 1 Kalali Street West. During this time, the firefighters will be handing out masks and fire prevention safety goodie bags for kids. More information about Fire Prevention Week can be found at portcolborne.ca/Fire Prevention Week. And we ask you to take care and be safe. Members of council, any questions with regards to the mayor's report? I'm surprised Councillor Bodnar isn't chomping at the bit about public transit. I think he and I started on that committee back in the early 2000s, so it's about time that we're getting there with the region. So no questions. At this time, I'll call on our Niagara Regional Councillor, Councillor Butters. Welcome, Barb.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. It's good to see everyone. We just got back from the north, and it was wonderful to go north, and Lake Superior deserves her name, but it was also nice to be back in Port Colborne when we returned. So I'm really just glad to be here tonight. I'm just going to share with you what I think is a pretty important milestone. On September 30th, there's going to be a corporate day for learning and reflection at the region as a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Is to acknowledge the history of Indian residential school system and to honor the children taken, their families and communities. So as part of the region's commitment to advancing education and training for all staff in the history of Indigenous peoples living in Niagara, this will be including the legacies of the Indian residential school system. On September 30th, staff will have opportunities to listen, learn, and reflect through Indigenous film screenings, facilitated discussion, and streaming from the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. Also, starting September 30th, the region will introduce new mandatory training for all current and new employees on the history of Indigenous peoples. And these corporate courses were developed by the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center. So I think that's our way of committing to the work that's left to be done in this truth and reconciliation process. I'd also like to join Mayor Steele in congratulating Vance Badaway and his re-election. And as always, I will look forward to working with him again. I see that you've got 810 lifted for discussion, and I received several emails, which I know you all received as well. So I will look forward to tuning in on this discussion. And at this point in time, I'm happy to take any questions and hopefully get your answers back. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Butters. Any questions to the Regional Councillor this evening? Seeing none? Again, thanks, Barb. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Next, we are on to staff remarks. Chambers, anybody have anything for council? Not seeing anything in here. Mr. Kalamoto, you're up first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can, just with regard to, I can take care of it now, or when we get to item 8.10, just wanted to note that there is a correction on the attachment. So I just wanted to point that out while I had the opportunity here, but we can also, I can also again point it out when we get to
11 p.m.
Yes, we'll have you do it when we raise that, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Quick question. If you have a chance, could you give me a call? Message deleted. New message.
Please mute your phone or your computers, guys. I don't think we need to listen to your private phone life. Anything else, Mr. Kalamoto?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Any other members of staff with any updates for council? Okay, seeing none. Councilors' remarks. I'm going to start with Councilor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, tonight I have no remarks. I'm just really pleased that things are going a little bit smoothly, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Clayliff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have nothing tonight either. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. My remarks will be handled under 8.10. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question. I guess I'll direct it to Chief Lawson as he deals or is the head of bylaw. It's about a problematic short-term rental we have in our area. And I know that last night there was a noise problem. The police were called and bylaw was certainly informed on this. I think this is the fourth incident that I know of, and I may be generous. There's probably more. I'd just like to know the protocol. I'd like to get it out there as far as how the city bylaw people are going to respond to this particular incident while we don't have any real bylaws to I guess somehow make the owner pay for what's going on in this establishment. So can you enlighten me a little bit on how this one will be treated?
Chief Lawson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council. So we did get contacted by the complainant today, and that for us, that's number 2 on the record. So we are reaching out to the owner of the property. They're from out of town, let them know what's going on. So hopefully they can deal with it internally. Just talking with staff today, we are full bore with the AMPS program where we can start ticketing for infractions like our noise bylaw. And I think that's how we would handle it going forward. We do have the tickets in while we were kind of hoping to wait till January 1st to roll that out. We could, in theory, start very shortly once the justice approves it. Other than that, Councillor, I know we've talked to planning in the past about working on something to deal with short-term rentals. We did kind of push that off just because the summer months were so busy with road ends and grass and everything else. So I think within the next month, we could probably sit down, start figuring out some strategies on how we're going to move forward with this issue.
Councillor?
Sure. Yes, thank you. Can you just enlighten me a little bit on the ticket? Would it be the people that have rented it making the noise that would get ticketed, or would also the owner get ticketed? Have you figured that part out yet?
Chief?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, I'm quite honestly, I'm going to have to figure that one out, because while we could ticket the renter, it would be probably almost impossible for us to get that money back. I don't believe it can go on their driver's license. So we would have to, unfortunately, be targeting the owner of the property, and we could put that right to their taxes.
Good. So that's a good start. I think I'll have more to say on this later at some point, but that's good to know. Thank you very much.
Okay, you all set, Councillor, for anything else?
Yep.
You're good?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beauregard.
I have no remarks at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Danch.
Thank you. You probably thought you were going to get off easy tonight. Just one small note, and I hate to have our city staff be garbage people, but when you cross over that middle bridge just before Bell Marine there's a bag's been sitting there for a month, and no doubt the animals have got into it, and I hate to make our staff garbage people, but I'd really like to see somebody pick that up, and that's my only comment for tonight. Thank you.
Great, Councillor, thank you. Councillor Bruno?
Thank you, Worship. No, I had a ward councillor meeting this morning. All my concerns were answered, local and citywide. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. On item 16, consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Start with item 8.1. One, that Planning and Development Department Report 2021-247 be received, and that staff be directed to send a letter to regional staff and Regional Planning and Economic Development Committee outlining the importance of employment lands in Port Colborne and the concerns overall with the Niagara official plan. I'll have Councillors Bruno and Desmarais move that, and I'm going to go to Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I didn't know if Mr. Brady and Mr. Schultz wanted to do some preliminary overview. I think we brought them to this meeting based on last meeting and some of the concerns we all had. If they don't want to or weren't planning on doing that, I'd be prepared to go ahead with my questions.
Mr. Brady?
Find the unmute, which is so not unlikely. Anyway, Port Colborne staff have been dealing with the regional plan update and amendment for quite a long time. There's been an awful lot of comments that have gone through, and since I've been helping, we've had a couple of meetings with regional planning staff, and they have identified the growth scenarios and the issues. Probably the largest issue that I've talked to them about on behalf of the city of Port Colborne is the growth issue, and that has to do with the fact that the city of Port Colborne is very blessed by the fact that it has a great deal of residential land, and some of the other neighboring municipalities don't quite have the same amount. So the Ontario government thinks that something should be done about that. And I've made the comment on behalf of the city of Port Colborne that I think the boundaries of the city of Port Colborne should remain the same in terms of their urban boundaries, but perhaps they can deal with it in a numeric way. We're waiting to hear back from the region on that approach. They certainly thought it was well worth debating, and as I say, we're waiting from them. When it comes to the employment lands, the biggest issue that I see, and others as well, is the amount of natural heritage features that are being identified, and many of which are on your employment lands. We've again expressed to the region that we wanted them to take a good hard look at the natural heritage feature map that they provided to us. They promised that they would, but we have not heard back.
Okay, Councillor Bruno?
Thank you. Mr. Brady and David, I guess what struck me last week when there were two items with respect to where the region is moving forward on the Niagara official plan and its submission then to the province, and the fact that in that whole roll up, the province wants all of us obviously to conform to the Niagara OP. I was kind of struck by two things. And it might be a bit disjointed here, so I'll stop part way through and maybe you get to straighten me out so I don't go off on a tangent again on another area. I'm concerned that for quite a long time now, it's been apparent to me, and I think everybody else, that we purchase lands along Ramey Road for an industrial park. Many years ago, I remember the battle between then Mayor Vance Badaway and Mayor Damien Goldberg to ensure that that area of Port Colborne, bounding 140, was designated employment lands. And I understand that that happened. The region of Niagara has been well aware that they're bringing over water wastewater, perhaps some other conduit from the new water tower over onto the east side of Port Colborne. And that was to facilitate also the industrial park planned along Ramey Road. And yet I'm not clear by the wording in their rollout to complete the OP, which I understand does not have to be completed till July 2022, that it seems that I'm asking, you all are asking, and the report by the region to date, its updates and its approvals in principle and asking for municipal comments seems still a little murky to me as to their recognition that that area is an industrial park, after all that I have said. And so I'm just wondering if you can clarify for me, is there an issue where right now the region of Niagara is not on record that that land along Ramey Road, for which we own, is going to be included in their official plan as industrial so that we can proceed with the long plan industrial strategy and industrial park along there?
Mr. Brady?
Certainly. That's a very pertinent question. I think the timing for that question is right about now. So clearly that land will be, so the new term that's used by the region and throughout the province of Ontario for industrial lands is called employment lands. So that area will be identified as employment lands. However, there is a portion of it, and what that portion is not yet completely defined, that will be natural heritage. So the natural heritage lands will remove some of the lands which could potentially be employment lands. And the degree to which that is going to occur is substantially based on how far the region wants to proceed in terms of protecting natural heritage features. If they go with a significant amount to be protected, then there'll be less employment lands. If they go with the number that they've talked about in the past, and I believe was approved in principle, although I wasn't at that regional council meeting, but I believe there was an approval in principle for a certain schedule that they were identifying, then there will likely be more of it that will be employment lands. And we've specifically asked for that land and others, but that one in particular specifically said, we want to see your final mapping. And the region planning department has very much said that the city of Port Colborne will be provided that final mapping, but we don't have it yet.
Thank you. If further along that line, I'll try and phrase this in the right way without jeopardizing any other properties. And I'm thinking really more of what was known as the Nyon lands, and that employment lands and an OP designation that it's industrial is currently only contemplating those Nyon lands and that stretch on Ramey Road with which we own? Or is there the opportunity beforehand? So, if some of that is relegated useless, is there an opportunity for us to do anything either contiguous to Ramey Road or elsewhere on the 140 corridor to round that out? I just want to know that the door is not shut on refinement of that. So maybe I could ask that for now.
Mr. Brady?
Throughout my career, I've been very poor at reading people's minds, so I won't attempt to do it in this case either. But my suggestion to you is that door is closing. It's not completely closed as of yet. So the extent to which there will be employment lands is pretty well defined. It's what within that extent will continue to be employment lands.
Okay.
And the factor, in fact, the only factor that will come to play is how much of it will be considered natural heritage.
Great.
So
And
if you're expecting it to be, it's 100 acres now and 75 acres is employment lands and 25 acres becomes natural heritage, is there an opportunity to add another 25 acres someplace else? And the answer in planning is never no, as I'm sure most of you are aware, but this is getting pretty damn close to no.
Great, thank you. Rick, one last point. One of the things, and maybe I overread this in that report from the region that was on the last agenda, was that I'm concerned that the region and the province are expecting underemployment lands just like residential, because it referenced there's sort of this quota of sort of the, what we should have across the entire region. And I guess I worry that it could be convenient if they don't want to increase sort of per the guidelines or the proposals that have been presented as to what Niagara should have in industrial lands, that the way to meet that target is not to fight to increase it, but to stay within it. And that means finding spots here, there, and everywhere to trim it down to a number that they've already defined. And I don't know if you caught that section in the one report. It spoke to, I think, that whole residential component, which you spoke to, and what would be ideal for Niagara. And then it referenced that on the industrial side and sort of referred to there already is a number. And are we all trying to back into the number?
Rick?
Again, I'll use an analogy because it's the only way I can. There is a number, okay? So the region, and it's being to a certain extent dictated to them by the province, says X number of employment lands is what you need, and that's based on growth and all those kinds of things. So let me just argue for a moment that that number is 100. It's bigger than that, but let's argue that it's 100. Okay. Then the issue is the 100 available right now? And if the region's reports say that the 100 that we need isn't available right now. So that therefore we have to add to the total amount that we have to get to the number, which I've said is 100. But some municipalities have more than the share that's been identified for them, and other municipalities have less than what has been identified for them. Port Colborne is blessed in that it is one of the ones that has more in employment lands than has been calculated as the total amount that you should have. But the region doesn't seem to be pushing too hard to reduce the employment lands in municipalities. And in fact, the number isn't all that great. So it's not a significant number. So yes, my guess is there will be additional employment lands added to certain municipalities, but they won't be added to Port Colborne because you have a supply which, based on the projections that the region has put together, is more than sufficient.
Thank you. Then that leads me to one last question. We've had employment lands, so I'll look at Invertos, I'll look at Loyalist, I'll look at areas that from when they were instigated and put on the map, they've since been reduced over time by M&R, other issues that have reduced those lands. Have they been already deducted in that calculus?
Rick?
I don't believe that they have, but I believe that they will.
Okay,
Okay?
great. If you could keep us to date on that. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Welcome.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Thank you, Councilor.
Excellent answer. Thank you.
And just further to that, Mr. Brady and Mr. Schultz and myself will be convening a meeting with our new director of planning at the region. So once we get that set, this really is number one on the topic with them right now. So the three of us have talked about this, so we'll be bringing that information back to council once we've held that meeting. So any further questions on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. Item 8.2. This is why we're all here this evening. That the Chief Administrative Office Report 2021-249 be received for information. And this is the Port Colborne Public Library 2020 Annual Report. And this year we have our head librarian, Susan Therian, here. And Susan will be giving us our overview of that department. So Susan, welcome.
Thank you. Through you, your worship, to you and the rest of council. I am very pleased to be here this evening to present the library's 2020 annual report on behalf of the library board and library staff. The report will be presented in two formats, first in PowerPoint and then as a short video. So this is page one of our report, and it is a story of resilience, innovation, and gratitude. And we chose to call our report this because we believe that this describes not only the library, but also the city as a whole, from our mayor and our council to our CAO to every person working at the city. We responded to a very challenging year in 2020 with innovation and resilience as a whole to ensure that services were as uninterrupted as possible for our community. May I have the next page, please? And a message from our leadership team, which I hope you can read and enjoy later. May we move on? And our leadership team includes, of course, our public library board trustees, our citizen volunteers who are dedicated and so amazing for us all, from Michael Cooper, our chair, and Brian Ingram, our vice chair, and our councillor, Mark Baggy, who represents council at the board, and our management team with Scott Louis, who serves as our chief executive officer, myself, and Brian Bowles, who is our very worthy and capable treasurer. Next slide, please. And our team, and I think you all know them, but here they are, and they are just amazing. And we're all masked, but next year, hopefully we won't be. Next slide, please. Our vision, mission, and values are stated here. And on the other side, some beautiful comments from our citizens. Next slide, please. Our strategic plan. I think council knows that our strategic plan is separate from the city's. Our CEO, Scott Louis, took the board through the process and came up with our strat plan from 2018 through to 2022 with our goals of attracting new users, increase engagement, outreach, increase teen users and usage, maximize use of library space, continued exploration of our cultural block, increase staff, library internal capacity, and to explore new funding sources. And we have outlined here the actions taken during 2020 to support the plan. Next slide, please. And our story started and began like any other year. According to plan, we had our services going. We had the opening of our accessible washroom and children playing with Lego blocks due to a generous donation from the Port Colborne Lions Club. Next slide, please. And on March 13th, our plans changed just like everyone else's, and COVID-19 brought a series of twists and turns. And I've outlined the whole timeline. Next slide, please. So more changes that had to be made. Next slide, please. Right to December 26th, when we went into a province-wide shutdown. And together we wrote this story that belongs to 2020. And next slide, please. So we had a plan, and the library based our plan on 4 pillars. The first being well-being for the library as a workplace in a public space where we prioritize staff and public safety. Also on the delivery of library services, so that during the disruption, whatever we did, we replaced services with quality alternatives, such as enhanced virtual collections, and we reimagined our service delivery methods. Next slide, please. The plan was also included financial impact and sustainability, where the board reviewed our operational budget and our capital budget. We adjusted for shortfalls and we planned for 2021 and beyond, anticipating ongoing effects from the pandemic. And also our other fourth pillar was our framework and principles of library service, so that we could always maintain the core principles, including equitable access and freedom of information. And throughout 2020, everything was free, and we waived fines and provided free printing for people who were challenged and couldn't leave their homes. And next slide, please. We partnered with our city, and thank goodness we have such an amazing city. Policies, procedures, and protocols were implemented to support and protect. Our main activity or focus was to reduce barriers for people who couldn't access the library during lockdowns. And that was very worrisome for us. We had 24-hour Wi-Fi, we expanded our digital services, online card registration, free printing, whatever we could do to support the community. We also implemented remote work options for staff. Health and safety, the city, we took the lead from the city on all of that because we found that the decisions they made were excellent and they kept us safe, and they made it easy for us. In terms of communication, we upped our communications to make sure that not only staff, but the public was well informed of what we were doing. And next slide, please. We adapted our physical spaces in the time of COVID. And if you've been in post curbside and we're now browsing, you can see all the changes that we did make to make staff and the public safe. Next slide, please. We implemented curbside pickup. It started June the 1st and went through till our big lockdown. And we had almost 3,000 curbside pickups, and that went very, very smoothly. And people still choose to do it. And it is a great service, which we will continue. Next slide, please. Communications, yes, extra, read all about it. We produced a brand new digital newsletter, which we put out every month to let people know about our services and our programs, but also to keep everyone up to date on our COVID-19 changes. Next slide, please. At the heart of everything we've done is to support our community. So we came up with lots of different programming and engagement. Staff were very, very creative, and they worked very hard to put out as much interesting things, whether it was takeaways at the door or digital programming. They worked very hard all year, and as they always do, but they were very creative and came up with lots of great options. Next slide, please. Our programming, our digital programming dominated, and we started a YouTube channel, and people responded and followed us. Next slide, please. May Madness at the library. So engagement also took kind of a fun way. Generally, there was March Madness, and we came up with our own bracket to name our snake plant, and it was very popular. People followed it. And if you ever stop by the library, and say hello to David Growy, because the people have spoken, and that's the name of our new snake plant. Next slide, please. 12 days of giveaways in December, and that is thanks to the kind generosity of the Port Colborne Optimist Club. They donated boxes of books, and we added them to our collection. And we also gave a lot of prize giveaways, especially the 12 good days in December, which that really helped brighten the month of December, and everyone really loved it. And we're very grateful to their kindness. Next slide, please. Our programming in numbers. I would say the key takeaway here is 71%, that's digital programming, as opposed to 29%, which was unheard of before this. But it is a service that we are not going to relinquish and continue to offer our patrons digital options. Next slide, please. I hope you had time to read these. I'm not going to read them, but our patrons submitted a lot of lovely comments during Library Month. We asked them to tell us why they love their library, and they responded. Next slide, please. But then we asked our littlest patrons to tell us why they love their library. And my favorite one, they're all awesome, but I do like, there are like 23 million books in the library. And if you've ever shelved books like some of our staff do, they can attest to that. There's a lot of books in our library. Next slide, please. Capital projects completed. In partnership with the city, we have a brand new website. Next slide. New library cards designed and they're circulating now. Next slide. We moved to a new integrated library system, and at the same time, we've also joined the Libraries in Niagara Cooperative, which on both fronts is great for staff, but also great for the public, because now our library patrons now have access to every, except for two, Niagara Falls and St. Catharines are not there yet, but our patrons have access to 10 libraries in Niagara, and their card is good at every single Link library. So that was a great move that we made. Also, not only for servicing our patrons, but also it was good for us in terms of cost savings and efficiencies. And next slide, please. One example as a great result from this is that when you look at the interlibrary loans that we did in 2019, and you look at 1 month of reciprocal borrowing that started in January 2021, we have more activity in 1 month now than we did in all of 2019. So books are flying off the shelves and circulating throughout the whole Niagara region. Next slide, please. Our year in numbers. So we had very solid numbers considering the pandemic. We operated at about 60%, which when I look at the final numbers from 2020 across the province is pretty much on par. So we did very well and our patrons responded quite well too. Next slide. I would point out one number here is 7,290 incoming calls that we handled because people could not come to the library, but staff handled every single incoming call. They generally took at least 10 minutes, people asking for readers advisory and just how are we doing and what's going on. It was a great effort and a great, very fruitful because we were able to keep in touch with our patrons and they didn't feel so isolated and so lonely because they do feel we are their second family as we feel they're a huge extended family of ours too. Next slide, please. The year in numbers, in terms of revenue, of course, our self-generated revenue was down, but that was because of COVID. And next slide, and our expenses, pretty much as they would be in a normal year. And next slide. So looking forward to 2021, we are committed to building and growing, again, with innovation and resilience. We applied for an OTF Resilient Communities Fund grant in December and received confirmation that we would receive that in 2021. So we are currently updating 3 public service areas. We are upgrading our connectivity and voice solutions in 2021, continuing to grow our collections, programs, and services. And as always, we're committed to helping our community recover from the pandemic. And I'm going to ask our deputy clerk now to start a video that we have presented.
Ahoy everyone! As you know by now, on March 13th, the City of Port Colborne made the difficult decision during the COVID pandemic to close all of our facilities, including the library. That didn't mean the end of library services though. Throughout 2020 and all the way up to today, the library continues to find new, creative, and resilient ways to offer services to the community. In every way possible, the library has been a beacon for our patrons, whether it's digital services, curbside collection, or any of the number of ways we've served the public. The library staff have always been a phone call away in a time when isolation was as big of a problem as the pandemic. The library and the city make a great team, and the city is so proud of the efforts the library has made to continue to meet its mission of serving our user communities in new and exciting ways.
2020 began like every other year. In January and February, our programs were running on schedule, our books were flying off the shelves. We even celebrated the opening of our new accessible washroom. We had plans in place for the entire year. And then in March, everything came to an abrupt halt. The pandemic changed everything, not just for us, but for the whole world. The story of 2020 is very much like any book of fiction that we have here on our shelves. It's filled with twists and turns. You know where you're headed, but you're just not sure how the story will unfold. Looking back, the story hasn't really ended. It's with 2021 now a sequel, and possibly the story turning into a trilogy. The story of 2020 is about innovation, finding new ways to do old things, like moving from in-person programming to digital programming, learning how to make videos, and working remotely. It was also about finding new ways to do new things, such as curbside pickup. We have weekly staff meetings to tweak procedures and protocols, always with a mind to keep everyone safe. The story of 2020 is also about resilience. No matter what the challenge, our library team worked together to ensure we could keep library services going in one way or another, and that we could continue to be the center of our community. And I think mostly the story of 2020 is about gratitude. We're thankful to the people we work with, the people we work for, and the incredibly patient and good and kind community that we serve.
2020 was a challenging year. Our library board took a strategic response to the pandemic. We held virtual meetings throughout the year so we could do our very best to support our library and our community. Staff worked hard to come up with new ways to keep services going in 2020. They also completed inventory of the collections, helped get a brand new website up and running, successfully migrated to a new integrated library system, and joined the Libraries in Niagara Cooperative. It was a big year for our library, even in the midst of the pandemic. Our board is proud of our staff. We cannot thank them enough for their dedication and commitment. We also would like to thank the City of Port Colborne, from the mayor and council to every person working there. We could not have accomplished what we did without the city's support in keeping us safe and working and serving our community.
In a way, the story of 2020 is not so much about a single year, but rather a phase in the timeline of our collective lives. We found a photograph taken in 1918 of a group of librarians. They're all wearing masks, but you can see from their eyes that they're all smiling. In 2020, as in 1918, the library is an important part of a community. I think about the women in that photograph and how their resilience impacted what we are doing today. They built on the past to build for the future. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, making sure that everything we do during this phase helps us move forward and to have the capacity and resilience for the next phase of library service. It's a time truly to be grateful and a time to keep building, because we want our library to be strong, to endure, and to be a place where our community can continue to gather and grow.
We created a plan based on 4 pillars to help us get safely through the pandemic and to make sure that library services kept flowing. We adapted our building by adding clear signage, mylar barriers, directional arrows, and hand sanitizers to keep everyone safe. To make sure that our patrons could continue to take home library materials, we set up curbside service, with almost 3,000 items picked up safely. We even set up window shopping displays to help our patrons choose their books. It was also a wonderful way for us to maintain our relationship with our patrons and a way to say hello and we miss you. Our patrons are very important to us. We were available by phone and email to answer their questions and to provide personalized reader's advisory. In 2020, we handled 7,290 phone calls. Phone service was an important way to stay in touch with our patrons, who often felt isolated and lonely. Looking ahead to 2021, we have important projects planned, including updating 3 public service areas to increase the library's capacity to provide safe spaces for people to meet, work, learn, and connect. We will update our internet and telephone services and continue growing our collections.
In this discombobulating time of COVID and crazy politics, the library is a soothing refuge. The first time I entered after shutdown was like reuniting with a long absent friend. I love the peace, comfort, stability of it, browsing among the stalls, discovering new authors and titles. The staff are unfailingly kind and helpful. They always ensure pleasant visits. To top it all off, it's free for everyone to enjoy. Port Colborne Library has been a lifeline to me, especially during these stressful, uncertain COVID times. Being an avid book reader, I was ecstatic when the library reopened in June 2020 for curbside pickup. I have always found the staff to be courteous and helpful. I look forward to the day when the public can once again enjoy the tranquil, modernized interior, which remains a source of inspiration, knowledge, and creativity.
would like to say thank you to Cheyenne Stevens for the amazing work she did in filming that and editing it and making us look pretty awesome. She's amazing. Thank you, Cheyenne.
Great. Susan, I appreciate this, and I think on behalf of all of council, we thank you, your staff, and the board, as you said, for all the twists and turns that have happened during the pandemic. And I really believe the comments made during Library Month basically says it all. Again, thank you. We're going to go to questions. I'm going to go to Councillor Desmarais, then Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Susan. Susan, you and I have had many discussions on the library and how the changes that you plan and the kind of space you want to create. And so I want to pass this along to you because I know this will mean something to you. I recently spoke to a young woman who has a lot of difficulties in her life, and we talked about the city and how she gets along in it. And she says she likes to go to the library because it's the one place she can go to be treated like a normal person. So I got to tell you, the fact that you can provide a safe space that without judgment is just the best thing ever. So you make the city, you do us all proud. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Susan, great presentation. I mean, I'm enthralled with how in the face of COVID, you adapted and pivoted, and those that came through COVID or are coming through COVID that survive are because they've mastered that. And I think you guys certainly did. I sometimes think maybe now that after this presentation, there's something in the water over at the cultural block to do not just some great presentations, but some great interaction with our public. Just we got a great thing going over there, and you do a great job. And I think it's probably all about passion and leadership. Shows that it matters, and you guys really have done a wonderful job. What I wanted to ask you, and you alluded to it in your presentation a couple times, but what's come out of COVID that will change how you operate in the future, and what may exit or be on the wane? I'm just wondering from your perspective, like on the lessons learned, what's the future hold? That's a pretty loaded question, but I'll ask it anyways.
Susan?
Yes, well, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno. I would say that library services, I think we had envisioned that the library would become this big community hub. And for 16 months now, it hasn't been a hub per se, and yet it has still been very important. So to continue that hub, we had to do it virtually, or we had to step outside the building. And if we have to step outside the building, either virtually or in person, we'll continue to do that, because I think that's the way library service has to do. We started with our pop-up library to go out. So however we can do to go out to help people or to bring them books or whatever, I think that people always think that books are on their way out. Books will never be on their way out. We say we're more than books, but we are definitely about books. People still love the physical book. They love the electronic books. So where are we going in the future? I think we're going with more partnerships, as we have with Link, with the Libraries and Agri Cooperative. I think libraries are going to continue to partner amongst themselves, because the electronic resources that we would need and to provide for our patrons are very expensive. So the way to do that is to continue to partner and to share resources, because we don't want to fall behind, because people are hungry for more that they want their books, but they want more, but they still want to have a place where they can meet and interact and be on, as Councillor Desmarais said, on neutral ground where there is no judgment. It's a place where it doesn't matter who you are when you walk through that door. You're welcome.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clayliff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Susan, I also want to say thank you. I can't tell you the number of people that I've spoken to this past year and a half. And I think even a lot of visitors that come that have been away, people returning home that were from Port Colborne and coming back. And I think if I asked them, the majority of them, the number one place they would say that they remember, they love, is the library, the museum, that whole cultural piece. You add so much to the city for both residents and visitors. I can't tell you the number of what visitors that say the number one spot that they like to come to is the library, the museum, that whole space that you occupy. And it's not just about the books, it's about the people, Susan. So I'd like to thank you personally. I think you do a fabulous job, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
I have a fabulous staff. Trust me, it's a team effort, not just, they just make me look good. It's from our CEO down to every staff member we have. It's a great team working very hard to do the best for our community. And our neighbors decided they're pretty good too.
I totally understand that, Susan, but you know what? It takes great leadership, and you have shown great leadership, and you continually do. And like I said, it always makes me chuckle when people come back, even Canal Days, everything, and you talk about them, and they all have to pay a visit to the library. They have great memories, childhood memories right through the ages, the last 40 or 50 years of growing up. Even if they've gone away, they come back and they have to visit you. So I think that's a good testimonial. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation. I'll have Councillors Kalaloff and Wells move that this report be received. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor, raise your hand, and that's carried. Next is item 8.6, that Public Works Department Report 2021-236 be received. The Council approve the installation of a three-way stop intersection on Chippewa Road and Dolphin Street, and the Council approved $15,000 additional funding from the Capital Contingency Reserve for the construction road reconfiguration at Chippewa Road, Berkeley Avenue, and Dolphin Street. I'll have Councillor Wells and Councillor Desmarais move that. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not so much any questions in regards to it. I'm in favor of this work. Just a comment in regards to, I think it's a little overdue, and I'm glad that we're moving ahead with this. I think it will help alleviate some of the traffic congestion on Chippewa Road. But I do have one question regarding a comment or a identification of a road survey being done, a map being done. And I believe that map will cover the entire city. If I could get that confirmation from Director Kalamoto. And if that will include signage for other areas other than just in the urban center.
Mr. Kalamoto?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that the councillor is talking about the truck route signage and investigation. And yes, he is correct that it will be throughout the entire municipality, not just within the urban center. And the mapping and truck route signs will be going up this fall into the winter.
Councillor?
And that's good news. Thank you, Director Kalamoto.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I suppose this should go to Chris as well, Mr. Kalamoto. First of all, let me thank you and your staff for getting this work done. It's really very important to the residents in the area. I've had several calls from people that are really happy to see that it's finally happening. And some people that want to know about other traffic calming measures. They're really talking farther down on Chippewa. So I did tell them all that the staff is still looking at pedestrian safety, lighting, traffic flow, that sort of thing, and that there would be recommendations coming forward in the future about how to best deal with those situations. So am I right on all of that?
Mr. Kalamoto?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. For the councillor's question, if there are any issues with regard to speeding or traffic, especially after this project is implemented, we would definitely be taking a look at further measures to help reduce those speeding. So again, it is sometimes a step process. We have implemented some speed mitigation measures in the north section of Chippewa, and we are also going to be putting in some of those speed radar signs. So if they are needed in the south end of Chippewa, that would definitely be the next step.
Thank you. Councillor?
Okay, thank you. And the pedestrian aspect as well, that is very important to them. Some sort of safe walking and safe lighting for evening.
Mr. Kalamoto?
That is something that we can look into as we investigate the south end of Chippewa.
Okay, maybe I misinformed people then, because I was of the understanding that we were doing a study on that whole area, and all of those aspects were part of that study, not something that we would look into if the issue came up, because it has already come up. So I must be somehow misunderstanding things. So we don't have plans in place to just do this, or what are we doing? How are we attacking this?
Mr. Kawamoto?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the councillor is referring to the south end of Chippewa near Highway 3, there is some additional signage that we have put in, but if it is with regard to what we're talking about here in this particular report is the intersections at the Dolphin, Berkeley, and Chippewa area, along with taking a look at the pedestrian sidewalk from that point northerly to the 140. The area down at the intersection of 3 and Chippewa has not been investigated at this time.
Okay, it is the area from Berkeley to the 140 along Chippewa that is in question. And the questions are around, speed, unsafe driving practices, no safe walkway for pedestrian, and lighting that is absolutely inadequate for any evening stroll or even driving along there because of the deep ditches and that sort of thing. So it was the entire package. It wasn't just part of it. So there's an understanding that, or I had the understanding from past council meetings, that this was all being looked at under one study.
Mr. Kawamoto?
Yes, through you to the councillor. Yes, from the Berkeley area all the way to the 140 has been looked at. That is part of the package that you see in front of you. That is correct. Sorry, my misunderstanding. Councillor, I thought that you were talking about south of that, which we didn't quite look at 3 and Chippewa, other than the no truck routing signs. And so, yes, we have looked at the pedestrian sections of, or the pedestrian areas for the Berkeley to the 140. On this call, we do have Supervisor Sellez and Technologist Garrett that might be able to provide any additional insight if required from any of the questions.
Okay, well, I think really what I'm looking for is not necessarily what exactly are we doing, but when will you roll it out so that you can tell the public what will be done and then what the timelines are. That's really what I'd like to know. When you'd be able to tell us.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Once council takes a look at this report, and after this meeting is when we start the communicating with the communications team on this towards everybody that is on Berkeley and actually some of the surrounding areas that may be impacted also. So with regard to that, with regard to the pedestrian section, with regard to, the sidewalk, we did speak to that within the PIC, did discuss the costing, the logistics, and our recommendation at this time is not to move forward with the pedestrian sidewalk. But we do have other implementations to move forward with, including the speed mitigation, which is currently implemented. Plus, we do have some of those speed signs that we will be putting in shortly, plus some other areas with regard to the stop signs and the intersections, which council sees within their the package that has been provided as the attachment, along with some additional sidewalk within that Berkeley Dolphin area. And so once council has a chance to discuss this tonight, once there is a final approval and of any of the recommendations, then that's where we start communicating with the public as to the transformation and implementation of this.
Okay, well, I thank you for that information. It really does, I gotta say, it falls short of the mark. The pedestrian aspect is incredibly important. We're coming into the most dangerous time of the year with snow on the side as well. So you have deep ditches, you're gonna have snow along the road, you have a very narrow road, you got cars flying down there, and there is nowhere for a person to be able to walk. That just is a recipe for disaster. So I had thought we were looking at it. We're not. We'll be talking about it further, I'm sure. But I know the residents will not be happy hearing this one. But I thank you very much for what has been done.
Thank you, Councillor. You can always make an amendment to the recommendation to add that as a, to have staff come back with that for the 2022 budget.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think if you look back in the council meeting, you'll see that I've had this recommendation. These motions have gone through a couple of times already. I thought that this was being done. So I could do it yet again, but there's no more guarantee that it would happen now as it was in the last few times. I think there's 2 motions in place already. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
very, very disappointing.
So we can go back to those. If Madam Clerk, can we at least come forward by next meeting with the motions the councillor talked about with regards to the sidewalk issue on Chippewa, so that we know what direction was given at that time?
Yes, I will look into it and circulate to council all the times it came to council.
Okay. I still don't see it being an issue tonight, councillor, that it's actually part of this motion due to the fact that this specifically talks about that whole area and what staff are moving forward with. I would recommend that you do add that as an amendment, but I can come back to you on that if you wish.
Well, all right, I certainly can add it as an amendment if it just makes it simpler. And if anybody's looking for the last time, it was as part of council's remarks. It went to a staff direction. So, but in any case, yes, I would add it as an amendment tonight that we add in a full assessment of all the options that would provide pedestrian safety along that road. That would include better lighting and some sort of safe walking. And I don't know how we would do that, but in any case, let's have a look at it.
Okay, just 1 second. Madam Clerk's saying something to me. Just 1 second, council. Okay, councillor, thank you. So I do have an amendment to the recommendation with regards to adding the pedestrian safety issues regarding sidewalks, lighting, and other safety issues that staff may come up with. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Beauregard. Okay. This is to the amendment. Questions on the amendment? Councillor Bruno, questions to the amendment? Take off your mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was under the clear understanding in the presentation, and I'm not sure the staff member that did that last time, that at approximately $1 million, that if it wasn't on the slide, it was verbally presented, that at this time that was off the table, and I believe it referred to the cost. I'm certainly not opposed to looking at lighting or other ways of assisting pedestrians there. What I'm concerned about, does the amendment stop the progress on this project that's been outlined? Because we do have a budget, and we do want to get started on the improvements that were put forward. So does the amendment speak to 2022 when we've just done a capital budget? I just remember that when we did Stanley and Clarence, that those were add-ons, but they preceded this late date. I'm all for looking at making it safer for pedestrians. I just don't want to stop the process. And so if that leads into something in 222 for 223, I'm not quite sure how we come back this quick before the end of the year and envelop a dollar amount.
Yeah, I apologize, Councillor. I really was referring to the 2022, the year 2022 budget deliberations. I understand we've already gone through our capital budget We've actually passed that this evening. So it would be this time next year going into the 2023 spend. So it would allow staff.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, because it would allow staff to proceed what's recommended tonight, plus bring back a wholesome costing of lighting,
Sure.
safety, sidewalks, so that we can actually deliberate with hard numbers to move forward with that. So is that all right?
Thank you for the clarification,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is that all right, Councillor Desmarais? You're fine with that?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. It's actually what I expected.
Okay, and putting that in there will not stop what staff has also recommended within this report. So, any questions from Mr. Kawamoto? Any questions back to councillors on this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll wait to see the recommendations as they are finalized. Just to note that the sidewalk is discussed within the report, with the estimate being approximately $900,000, and some of the logistics that staff identified if a sidewalk is to be put in. So that is within the report.
Great, thank you. I think with this amendment, Mr. Kawamoto, I think you can proceed with everything else. But I believe council, especially Councillor Desmarais, wants to see that wholesome report come back specifically to this issue with hard costs and other alternatives, as was asked about lighting and other safety measures for pedestrians in that area. So I think you can come back without opening up the whole other part of the report. You can move forward with this and then come back with that specific ask under that under that amendment. Is that fine?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions on the amendment? Councillor Desmarais? No, you're all
Thank you,
set?
Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify for a second that in no means should this stop the work from going forward that we're faced with tonight. And as far as the sidewalk goes, I really do mean alternatives to sidewalks as well. It may be a paved path, maybe a wider, softer shoulder with built-in ditches, anything that would make pedestrians safer. That's what we're looking at. So it doesn't have to be a concrete sidewalk. That would be very expensive, I would agree. So just whatever options are out there, I really like to see that we've examined them.
Great, thank you. And I think those options would be, yeah, instead of, as you said, just one option of a concrete sidewalk, have staff bring back all the options. So, okay, further questions on the amendment only? All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. Now back to the motion as amended. Any further questions on the motion as amended? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Thank you, council. Next is item 8.10, or 8.10. There are recommendations that Public Works Department Report 2021-153 be received, that key access to the currently barriered and locked road ends, being Lorraine Road, Silver Bay Road, Wildwood Road, and Pleasant Beach Road, be restricted to construction matters and be facilitated through the municipal consent process, that the fee for key access be $700, of which $600 is refundable after return of key and lock in working condition to Public Works staff, and that a fee be included in the 2022 fees and charges bylaw for any validated site visit investigations required by city staff because of misuse of the key. I have councillors Bruno and Wells moving that, and I'm going to go to the speakers list. Councillor Bruno first, then I have Councillor Wells, then I have Councillor Bodner. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I was going to take most of my cues this evening to the ward councillors who put in so much time and effort into this. The only thing I was going to add, I didn't know I'd be first up, was just I had talked to local locksmith company because I was in there for another personal reason, and he talked about this Medco lock and key set, which allows you only have to go. You can only go to locksmiths to get it copied. But the interesting thing was, for every gate, you sort of have an A, B, C key, right? So A opens all the gates, and like B might be Pleasant Beach, C, Wildwood, D, Pinecrest. And so you just break off that lock only key for people. And that's probably in Mr. Kawamoto's mind or his staff, but it was just one thing I happened to pick up on there about the way to probably facilitate this. So, you know, you don't, a key lost or not returned doesn't mean you're rekeying and relocking everything. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Your Worship. In light of all the emails and correspondence we received tonight, some of the delegations which are actually attached to the agenda, I would like to request that this be deferred to the October 25th council meeting to give the public and the residents in that area some time to provide some input and have them engaged in the protocol around the lock and management of the access.
Great, thank you.
I would extend, again, I would like to have it deferred. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder for that? Councillor Bodnar, sorry. Councillor Bodnar seconded. There is no debate on deferral. So the deferral is to have this come back to our October 25th meeting with a chance to have the residents comment, thank you, Mr. CAO, comment back on the issue. Councillor Bodnar, I'll give you a little leeway, but be careful.
Always, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Just kind of a point of order. Director Kalamoto was going to make some corrections to this because there is a glaring mistake on this report that came out as far as what's private and what is public. Is there leeway for him to, I assume that may be what he was going to mention, because the genie's out of the bottle. And, you know, I don't want to see this mistake get entrenched somehow in somebody's mind. So I'm wondering whether we could just clear up that first.
Okay.
And then do a defer.
Councillor Wells, is that fine if we can have clarification from staff only, then I'll go right to the deferral after?
Absolutely.
Thank you. The clerk says we're fine with that. Mr. Kalamoto?
Thank you. Thank you for the councillor for giving me that opportunity and through the mayor. Just wanted to point out that on the attachment to this report, the Cedar Bay rodent page specifically, other than the unfortunate typo, it is only the west of the beach that is the public. The east end or south of Fire Lane 5 is not public. So it is, I believe that the deputy clerk has submitted the newer versions. However, I just wanted to point that out with regard to those watching right now, that it will be corrected in the next one. And that package is now with the deputy clerk, but just did want to point out that on that attachment on Cedar Bay to the east or south of Fire Lane 5 is not a public right of way. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor, Mr. Kalamoto, you're talking about the promenade, correct?
The beach area. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Okay.
It's not public land, I should say, sorry.
Public land, yes. Okay, so we'll have that change when that report comes forward, correct, Madam Deputy Clerk? You have those changes that you'll make?
Yes, it formed part of the delegation package.
Great, thank you. Okay, Council, so this is a deferral. We had some clarification there from staff. All those in favor of the deferral, please raise your hand. Opposed? That's carried. Okay, thank you. That's the end of our items. There are no motions this evening, councillors. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none. Minutes of boards and committees. All of Councillors Danch and Bruno move the Port Colborne Public Library Board minutes, July 6, 2021 be received. Questions on those minutes? All in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Bylaws. I'll have Councillor Wells and Bodnar move bylaws 20.1 and 20.2. Any questions to those bylaws? All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. So at this time, I'll have Councillors Danch and Bruno move that Council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. Items 12.1 minutes of the closed session portions of August 23rd, 2021 and September 13th, 2021 council meetings. Item 21.3, Chief Administrative Office Report 2021-251 concerning a human resource update pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsections 2392B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, 2392D, labor relations or employee negotiations, and 2392F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And item 21.4, Chief Administrative Office Report 2021-252 concerning sale of vacant lot on Nickel Street. And item 21.5, Chief Administrative Office Report 2021-250 concerning Ramey Road land acquisition update, both pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. So ladies and gentlemen, this ends our public portion of the meeting. We will be going in camera. When we do come out, we won't be coming back on to live streaming. So we thank you for joining us this evening, and I now adjourn this portion of the meeting.